The Turning Pie and Tejon Brown, and the Spark That Ignited a Nation, 1859. A small group of men attacked a United States federal arsenal. They were only 21. Their leader was a gray-bearded farmer in his late 50s. The government called him a terrorist. Many Americans called him a madman. But millions of enslaved people would remember him as something very different. A man who dared to start a war against slavery when almost no one else would. This is the story of John Brown, the man whose death helped ignite the American Civil War. And it all began with a moment that haunted him for the rest of his life. The Iron Shovel John Brown was only 12 years old. He was traveling with cattle through rural Ohio when he saw something that would change him forever. Nearby stood a slave boy about the same age as John, but the boy was not standing freely. He was being beaten. The overseer held an iron shovel. Again and again, the metal struck the child's body. Each blow echoed through the quiet countryside. John could not move. He could only watch. The slave boy never fought back. He only looked at the ground, silent and broken. That night, young John Brown could not sleep. The image of the shovel haunted his mind. And in that moment, the boy made a vow that would shape his entire life. He swore before God that he would dedicate himself to the destruction of slavery. To John Brown, slavery was not simply politics. It was evil. God's tool, John Brown, grew up in a deeply religious household. His father was a devout Calvinist who believed slavery was an abomination before God. These beliefs shaped John's view of the world. While many abolitionists fought slavery through speeches, newspapers, and politics, Brown believed something else. He believed God demanded action. For years, he worked quietly. His home became a secret stop on the Underground Railroad, helping enslaved people escape north toward freedom. Men, women, and children passed through his house in the darkness of night. But the situation grew worse. In 1850, the United States passed the Fugitive Slave Act. The law allowed slave hunters to capture escaped slaves even in free states. Even worse, ordinary citizens were legally required to help capture them. To John Brown, this was proof that the entire nation had become complicit in slavery. His faith hardened. He began to believe he was chosen by God for a mission, like Moses confronting Pharaoh. But Brown did not believe slavery would fall through speeches. He believed it would fall through war. Bleeding Kansas in the 1850s, the territory of Kansas became a violent battlefield. Pro-slavery settlers and anti-slavery settlers fought to control the region. The conflict became known as Bleeding Kansas. In 1856, pro-slavery forces attacked the town of Lawrence, destroying homes and printing presses belonging to abolitionists. Soon after, shocking news came from Washington. Senator Charles Sumner, an outspoken opponent of slavery, was brutally beaten with a cane on the Senate floor. To many Americans, the nation seemed to be falling apart. To John Brown, the message was clear. Peaceful solutions were over. Told his followers something chilling. Only blood will wash out this crime. One night near Pottawatomie Creek, Brown and several of his sons visited the homes of pro-slavery settlers. They pulled 5 men from their beds and killed them with broadswords. It was brutal, it was shocking, and it changed everything. In a single night, John Brown crossed the line. He was no longer just an abolitionist. He had become a revolutionary. Harpers Ferry 3 years later, John Brown was ready for his greatest gamble. His plan was bold, almost unbelievable. He would seize a federal arsenal, arm thousands of enslaved people, and start a massive slave uprising in the Appalachian Mountains. From there, the rebellion would spread across the South. On the night of October 16, 1859, Brown and 21 followers quietly entered the town of Harpers Ferry, Virginia. Their target was the largest federal weapons arsenal in the region. At first, the plan seemed to work. They captured the armory. They cut telegraph lines. They even took several hostages. But something went wrong. The massive slave uprising Brown expected did not happen immediately. Local militia surrounded the building where Brown and his men had taken shelter. By morning, the town was in chaos. Gunfire echoed through the streets. Soon, the United States government sent soldiers. Leading them was a man who would later become one of the most famous generals in American history, Colonel Robert E. Lee. The Marines surrounded the small fire engine house where Brown was trapped. The attack lasted only minutes. Doors were smashed open. Gunshots rang out. 2 of Brown's sons were killed before his eyes. When the smoke cleared, John Brown lay wounded. He was kneeling beside the body of his son, his hand still gripping the hilt of his sword. The trial John Brown was charged with treason against the state of Virginia. Many expected him to beg for mercy. Instead, he turned the trial into a moment that shocked the nation. Wounded and lying on a stretcher, Brown calmly addressed the court, said something that newspapers across the country would print the next day. If he had fought for the rich and powerful, he said, he would be praised as a hero. But because he fought for the enslaved and the poor, he was called a criminal. He declared he was ready to die. On December 2, 1859, John Brown walked to the gallows. Before his execution, he left a short written message. It contained a dark prophecy. The crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. History would soon prove him right. Among the spectators watching his execution that day were 2 young men. One was Stonewall Jackson, who would later fight for the Confederacy. The other was John Wilkes Booth, the man who would eventually assassinate Abraham Lincoln. History was already gathering its actors. The turning point, John Brown died that winter morning. But his death sent shockwaves through the entire United States. In the North, many people saw him as a martyr, a man who sacrificed his life to destroy slavery. In the South, many saw something far more terrifying. Proof that the North was willing to start a slave rebellion. Fear spread, anger spread. And only 16 months later, the nation exploded into the American Civil War. When Northern soldiers marched to battle, they did not sing about politicians. They sang a song that echoed across the war. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on. So who was John Brown, a dangerous fanatic, murderer blinded by faith? Or the man who forced America to face its greatest sin? History still debates the answer. One thing is certain. Without the gunfire at Harpers Ferry, the chains of millions might have remained unbroken for much longer. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to The Turning Point, and join us for more moments where a single decision changed the course of history forever. And now we ask you, was John Brown a hero or a madman?